Welcome to Brainstorium. I'm Anna Tizard, award-winning dream punk and deeply weird fantasy author. And yes, that's me and my fiction that's deeply weird. Explore and imagine with me the most unexpected story ideas using the surrealist word game of Exquisite Corpse. Find out more and join in at annatizard.com. This is a storytelling challenge unlike anything you've tried before. Hello, imaginative people. I'm Anna Tizard, and this is episode 97 of Brainstorium, and a very happy new year to you. I hope you've had a great break over Christmas, and that maybe, just maybe, your break isn't quite over yet. I'm recording this on New Year's Eve, funny enough, so I am still in the deeps of Betwixtmas. I do love the in-between nature of this period. If you can get the time off work, I think it must be the most in-betweeny time there is. The days of the week start to lose their distinctiveness. You might wake up feeling unsure about what day it is. You plan according to what you want or need to do, not dependent on what weekday it is. Or you don't plan at all and allow yourself to drift a little bit, possibly in your pyjamas. But who cares? It's Betwixtmas. And it's usually true that the writing time we carve out for ourselves has to be, by its nature, in between other things. So I'm a big fan of the in-between in general. Inspiration often opens up in snatched moments between doing other things. Ideas can sneak out of tight spaces, and creativity often blossoms when you give it restricted space to work with, like a challenging writing prompt, for example. Given a bit of tightness, a bit of restriction, we tend to find new ways to expand. And I am not talking about my waistband. Well, maybe I am slightly. We have just had Christmas. Anyway, while you may already know that I'm not a big advocate of setting goals during Betwixtmas, if you're using it to relax and recuperate, we are now in the new year, and you might, if you're like me, have already decided, perhaps a while ago, what you plan to do in 2026. My main goal is finishing, editing and publishing book 4 in my series, The Book of Exquisite Corpse, on the theme of weird creatures, by or during the summer, if that does leave enough time for a professional edit. I hope so. It began as a collection of short stories inspired by writing prompts on this show, but it has developed into something more than a collection. I will be sharing some updates on this in upcoming shows, and I am trying to contain my excitement on this, so please stay tuned. I need to tell you about it soon. But having talked previously about how I have a tendency towards burnout and pushing myself too hard, I wondered if it might be useful, not just for me, to reflect on ways in which we can celebrate our achievements along the way. They say success is an attitude. It's one thing having goals to keep you focused on what you want to achieve, but how easy it is to get bogged down as time passes. Creativity doesn't necessarily thrive on a tick box list, and sometimes being too strict with ourselves can shut our inspiration down. How can we keep up that playful, buoyant attitude about our work in progress and prevent ourselves from feeling stuck in a tunnel when the going gets tough and we've been working on it for a while? One excellent habit to keep is, of course, Brainstorium. Of course I'm going to say that, but seriously, taking regular, brief moments out of a longer work in progress to practice imagining, to test out new ideas, to just dwell in that purely playful space and to share the joy of being creative with other people. This really helps me hit the restart button on my creativity so I can come back to my longer work in progress with a refreshed perspective and sometimes new ideas to add to it. And of course, if your goal is to write short stories or poems this year, then this may be all you need. Brainstorium may be your all-in-one solution, and maybe you will never get fatigued. But another great way to keep things fresh, which is entirely focused on your goals, no matter what they are, is to find a way to celebrate each small step along the way. That might be weekly or daily achievements. Shortly after I went to FantasyCon in early November, which kind of felt like a fresh start for me at the time, a boost that was sort of like my own writerly new year, I started writing weekly goals in a small logbook. Each page was entitled with my goals for that week, and then underneath it, I wrote what I actually did. But after a few weeks, I gave up on the goals part. It just felt too much like micromanagement to me. I know what I'm trying to achieve as my overall goal, and most of my writing slots are dedicated to getting there bit by bit. I might plan to work on a particular scene or chapter in 1 week, but when I come to sit down, it might turn out to be a different section entirely that suddenly inspires me, and I want to be open to that. I've learned from experience it is often better to go with your instincts and write the part that is speaking to you in that moment, rather than just bulldoze through with a chapter that hasn't yet grabbed you in that way, just because you made up your mind the day before that you were going to do that. How true this may be for you as well will depend on how your brain works. It's more likely to apply to you, I think, if you have a tendency to be a bit relentless like me and very disciplined. If, on the other hand, you're a procrastinator, you might need to be wary in case you have a tendency to avoid knuckling down. It's just a different set of problems. Know yourself is the ultimate thing to do. But the logbook became quite a useful tool for me in simply recording what I had done in each week. It also, I think it encouraged me to be more sneaky about slipping in extra writing slots in the odd lunchtime, the odd bus journey, partly because my logbook is a way for me to keep tabs on Brainstorium stuff versus interviews versus newsletters, those kinds of things. I don't necessarily record how much time I spend on every little thing, but just having this logbook made me feel more conscious of how much time I was spending on other things. And without making a checklist or whatever of specific time spent on social media or watching TV, I think I just generally found myself to be a bit more conscientious or just wary of time and potential opportunities to write. So that was interesting. I wasn't expecting that. But trying to record what I'd achieved each week left me with a slight quandary. I'm not that comfortable with the idea of relying on word counts as a measure of achievement because, to me, a solid piece of flash fiction, say 250 to 500 words, might be worth more to me than 1,000 words of a novel that might need some heavy editing. How can you compare such things anyway? And if you're sticking to word count as your measure, how do you compare new words written with the editing process? Do you count the same words again? And what about brainstorms or moments of discovery where you realise the perfect twist to your story? I want to record those as achievements along the way as well. And that also helps keep things light and positive, less like a dull checklist of the same old. So I've ended up noting how many 20 to 30 minutes writing slots I use, as I usually need breaks in a 1 or 1.5 hour slot. And this habit of recording shorter slots or parts of a longer slot is like a reminder that I need to take breaks to be as productive as I can be. I make a note of word count if I've done well or pretty well. I also record units of wonder. That is moments of discovery as I work out the solution to a story, or an aha moment, or when I stumble across an idea that adds a twist, or anything else that just makes me go, wow, or yes. I make a note of what it was I discovered in no real detail, and I scribble a star next to it so that when I flick through my logbook, I can see at a glance how many of these special moments I've had, which are so vital if you think about it to the end product of a story or a novel, that how can we not celebrate them? How can we just stick to word count? These moments of wonder are certainly not measurable in word count or in time slots spent at the computer. Like creativity and inspiration, they go beyond time. Now, some people award themselves with stickers if they really like stickers. Others give themselves treats or award themselves time to do other things they love, or they cook a special meal for hitting a milestone. I tried some colouring in by gradually building a pattern on graph paper by allocating different colours to different things I achieved. Units of wonder were going to be red squares. Writing slots spent on weird creatures were blue squares, and time spent on brainstorium stuff was purple. What can I say? I'm not very inclined towards visual art, so this didn't really work for me, but if you were creative in that way as well, it's an idea to try. And to look at a finished pattern full of colours, knowing that each square represents a practical achievement, well, it makes sense that that would be satisfying, right? For me, I like the physicality of a tangible notebook with all my scribbles in it, as long as I can read it. I like to see the numbers and those stars, being able to flip back and see what I've done. And it prevents that feeling of the weeks and months blurring into one. That feeling you get that time is just slipping through your fingers and you're not getting enough done. Whenever you feel like that, you can get out your logbook, flip through and witness the proof that that is not happening. This also ties in with a concept in psychology of savouring. That is, intentionally focusing on and appreciating positive experiences such as personal achievements. Practicing savouring can boost your well-being, apparently, reinforce your motivation to keep going, that makes sense, build confidence and buffer you against stress and the risks of burnout. Hurrah! So I hope there are some useful tips in there for you. Whatever your goals, don't just focus on the end result, which may sometimes seem very far from your reach. Enjoy the journey, appreciate the journey and all your small achievements along the way as they happen, for they are the steps that will get you there. If we can find a way to celebrate them day by day or week by week, the positivity will keep us buoyant and confident in the knowledge that we are well on our way. Now, in the last show, I asked whether you could come up with a story or idea based on a rather weird word combination that cropped up, the multifaceted cameo. I received just the one response this time. It was, and kind of is, Betwixtmas after all. So understandably, lots of people are busy enjoying themselves, and I'm happy with that. So it makes sense for things to go a little bit quiet on the story sharing front. However, Paul Monteith, very much still in the Christmas mood, wrote, "Two elves dragged a brown canvas bag into Santa's workshop. North East Yorkshire's best anthracite," an elf announced. The best we can give to the worst, the second elf added. Santa looked at the elves and harumphed. They are not the worst, only naughty. As they rested the bag against the leg of Santa's workstation, he reached in and pulled out a piece of coal. He observed the black lump closely. Perfect. Who's that lump for? The first elf asked. Santa looked at his naughty list. This is for a Ronnie B. Good. Without another word, he picked up an elf and gently patted him to loosen a sprinkling of glittering stardust over the coal and his carving tools. The tools began to dance, just like the dancing sugar plums in the dreams of children snug in their beds. A carving knife, chisels, and gouges swiveled and swayed, rising and falling over the piece of coal as if they were ballroom dancers. The tools chipped and scraped at the anthracite in a coordinated rhythm, creating a cameo of Ronnie B. Good, surrounded by a multifaceted diamond-like surface. As the elves watched the dramatic flare of the dancing tools, they too began to hop, kick, and skip around the workshop. Santa chuckled and with a ho-ho-ho joined the jig while the tools finished their work. Wonderful! Santa roared as he held up the carved coal. Even the naughty listers deserve something special at Christmas. That is just so cosy and Christmassy. It feels like a last fairy dust sprinkled glimpse of the festive season before everything goes back to normal. Well, if you're a listener to this show, you know that normal doesn't have to be that normal. Am I right? Thank you, Paul, for sharing your feel-good story. You can find Paul Monteith on Blue Sky as Quantum Fairy. Right, it is time to explore new story ideas. And in fact, I have some new methods up my sleeve for the words that are about to emerge from the Socks of Destiny. That's right. Now, as we enter the new year, I've decided I'm going to experiment even more with the game of Exquisite Corpse. As ever, I want this show to be a playground for my and your imagination, a pure, playful space where any ideas can happen. And I found myself asking, what else can we try? Can we push this game further? Can we push our imaginations further and discover even more story ideas? And so, rather than necessarily pressing the pause button after the initial brainstorms to draft a new short story for the show, I am going to roll up my sleeves and try out some new ideas that will take the game and our imaginations to the next level. First, I will brainstorm each Exquisite Corpse in turn on its own as usual. Then I will pick one or two word combinations that stand out from the rest and try applying a category to them to see if they can be interpreted in new ways. All will be explained, all will come clear after the first round of brainstorms. As you may already know, Exquisite Corpse mixes words and phrases from different players into a sentence that goes describing word noun, action, describing word noun. So it's with some trepidation that I reach into the describing word sock for our first word, which is from Wendy. Mediocre. So what or who was mediocre? Our noun is from me. Okay, let's see what I have said. Scholar. I do not remember writing down the word scholar. Clearly I did. So the mediocre scholar. What did they do? Our action is from Paul Thomas. Saw the ghostly outline of. Okay, so our mediocre scholar is having interesting things happening to them when they spy a ghost or the ghostly outline of something that might not be a ghost but may have some sort of ghostliness about it. Let's see what that thing or person is. And next word is from Anonymous. Freakish. I almost dropped the sock there. I was surprised by this word. Final word for this very weird sentence is, everything is just getting caught around my hand at the moment. This is from Wendy again. Reader. That's interesting because it begins with a scholar. So we have a reader who is freakish in some way. Do they just like to read freaky books or stories? My kind of person. Okay, so I'm going to read out the entire Exquisite Corpse and have a think about this. The mediocre scholar saw the ghostly outline of the freakish reader. It's interesting that the ghostly character here, ghostly in the eyes of this scholar, is a reader, just like them. So there's a connection there between the characters. I feel like this must be happening in a library or a bookshop maybe, but because we have a scholar, I think it's probably going to be a library, a haunted library. What is freakish about the reader? I think this is probably the question to ask, to really dig into this for story ideas. What if a person gets lost in their reading so much that they leave this life, or almost do, living in the story that they read and imagine? Or what if they take on the characteristics of the characters in the book they're reading? If they're hooked on ghost stories, might they start to become a ghost? Is it the book that causes this terrible tendency so it draws someone in that much that they start to become kind of enveloped by the book's reality? Or is it more to do with the reader themselves, how he or she has some predisposition or some things happen to them to make them want it badly enough to immerse themselves in fiction? Gosh, there's a lot of ideas here I really like, because I'm a reader and I love books. So yeah, it's not too far for us to leap as readers and writers, because we, to some extent, lose ourselves in books. This is just taking it that little bit further into something fantastical. But let's move on. We'll just reserve that idea. I do like it very much. And move on to the next Exquisite Corpse. This is from Paul Benfield. Blustery. Okay. So it's making me think it's a blustery day, like it is now in Britain right now. This is also from Paul Benfield. Cloud. That kind of works. Weather related. Blustery cloud. What else could that mean, though, in a story context? This is from Paul Thomas. Regretted trusting. Okay, so now we have personified our blustery cloud. What is going on here? Next word is from, they're getting stuck to my hand today. This is from Mostly Paul Monteith, who is Quantum Fairy on Blue Sky. Souring. So something that's gone sour, although a person can also be said to be sour in their attitude. So final word for this is from Titania Tempest, who uses hashtag VSS Magic on Blue Sky. Mannequin. Why did that make me laugh? I just think it struck me as odd. So they all strike me as odd. So altogether we have the blustery cloud, regretted trusting, the souring mannequin. Okay, I think it might be time to pour some green tea and see if that helps. Let's give this a stir. Okay, so the blustery cloud, regretted trusting, the souring mannequin. I feel like, yeah, the blustery cloud probably has to be a person here if they are to regret trusting someone. It could be that they are associated with blustery weather or wind and windswept clouds. And yes, I am thinking of Mary Poppins, but we don't have to go there. We can think outside the box, think outside the socks. A weather forecaster would be another interpretation, or someone who paints pictures of interesting skies with clouds. A cloud watcher, someone who records the shapes of interesting looking clouds, someone who has some kind of weather-related magic. But then, who is this mannequin on the other side of the exquisite corpse, and in what way are they souring? The two characters used to have a good friendship, but something's changed. How to link these two characters, because I think that is the way in to this exquisite corpse. It's making me think about windows. A mannequin is window dressing. And this character who observes blustery clouds sees reflections of clouds in a window. Maybe it's the same window. Maybe they kind of meet in this way. And what if the reversal of the clouds, so their mirror image in the glass, is significant in some way? Something to do with the magic this person wields? Or still trying to link up these characters somehow. What if the mannequin has kept watch for particularly unusual clouds or a certain shape that form a portent, like an omen for something that's dreadful, that is suspected that is going to happen to this town or city, and they failed to alert the cloud watcher of a really important change, or chose not to tell them for some reason. And that would be why the blustery cloud watcher regretted trusting the souring mannequin. There's a possibility there. It's quite odd, as you'd expect. I think I'd be disappointed if it wasn't quite odd. So let's move on to our third and final exquisite corpse. This is from Paul Benfield, languid. So that could be lazy or just for whatever reason unable or unwilling to move. Let's see. Next word is from Stalky. Gecko. Okay, let's see, the Lazy Gecko. Is that a good pub name? Okay, let's see what happens in the Lazy Gecko last night. This is from Anonymous. Oh, attacked. Is there a fight in this lazy sounding pub? This is just quite a strange conflict here, or sort of contrast. Something or someone lazy and an attack. Next word is from Anonymous. bittersweet. Why would you attack something that's bittersweet? Okay, so final word for this exquisite corpse. Oh, it's Paul Thomas again. Oh, serial killer? Is that a good idea? Should you attack a serial killer? Okay, so the entire exquisite corpse is the languid gecko attacked the bittersweet serial killer. I have to ask, how can a serial killer be bittersweet? Unless it's a really messed up romance. Could this be something to do with the serial killer's own twisted perception of what he does? Or is there someone else, another character, who has a history with him and maybe doesn't realise that he's a killer and sees him in a cafe, the Languid Gecko? Well, I would drink tea there. I might even order a hot chocolate. But I digress. This woman who has a history with this killer, who she doesn't realise is a killer, has a bittersweet view of him. They dated at high school. He was only slightly creepy, but something about him unnerved her back at school when she could see he was a bit of an outcast, and her heart went out to him. She could see how he might go one way or the other, good or evil, this career or that career. But in the end, some subtle sign that he was actually dangerous, menacing in some way, made her pull back, and she broke it off. But then, looking at the exquisite corpse now, I feel like it should be her who attacks him when he turns up in her local cafe, the Languid Gecko. Why does she attack him? Are we about to find out that she's the more dangerous character? After all, could you write a short story this way, where the twist is this big? So we're given, at the opening of the first scene, we're given all the signs that this guy is really dangerous. Perhaps he's finishing off a dodgy sounding phone call. He's hiding a weapon. We just see a little glimpse of that. Maybe he goes to the men's loos and discovers, oh, he's got a little bit of blood on his hand or his wrist or even his face. You missed a bit as he looks in the mirror. And then when he comes out, this woman who he used to date, who doesn't recognise him yet, has a go at him for not tipping. So maybe she verbally attacks him in that way. And then what? I don't know. Something, it's going to build, and then you find out in the end that she's a serial killer too. Or maybe he was never a serial killer in the first place. It's just there are these funny reasons why he's sending a text or having a phone call that sounds dodgy, turns out to be quite innocent. And there is a reason why he has a weapon. Well, no, he's a chef. He needs decent knives. And the blood maybe isn't blood after all in the mirror. So you could flip it round completely. Well, there you go. I feel like I've almost written that story, but I do like that haunted library. But of course, it's up to you what you would like to try, though I will make a suggestion at the end of the show. Right, so now that we've had our initial brainstorms, as usual, I am now going to try a new method to take one of these word combinations to the next level of story brainstorming. I've created a list of different categories. This is just a draft, by the way, and I'm thinking of developing this further. So do let me know if you have any suggestions. Get in touch at annatizard.com. My draft list for these categories of interpretations, and this will make sense once I start trying them out, includes a book or magazine, a job or role taken on reluctantly, a pub or cafe, a portal or means of travel, a piece of treasure or magical sought-after object, a monster or creature, an invention, or a weapon. So just taking this from the top, I'll pick three, by the way. I'll just pick three. If we take the freakish reader as a particularly juicy word combination, because I do particularly like that one, and we ask, what if this was interpreted as a book or magazine? Well, my eye was drawn to that category first because it actually reminded me that a reader can be a kind of textbook where you have extracts of different books gathered together on a topic, I think for teaching purposes. It's very textbooky anyway. But that makes the freakish reader even weirder. If there was a magazine or a book that was called The Freakish Reader, it would have to be for teaching people to be freakish in some way. I mean, what does that even mean? I guess any ways in which people might be non-conformist, but in colourful or interesting ways. You could have articles about strange hobbies, about collecting weird things, starting your own religion, wearing weird clothing. Weirdness for the sake of weirdness? Or would it be for a purpose? Maybe that would be the subject of an article if this is a magazine. I think I would read The Freakish Reader, maybe just the once, even if I'm not necessarily intending to take on any new and bizarre hobbies. I mean, Exquisite Corpse is weird enough, right? There's enough strangeness and discovery in the life of a writer. Maybe I could submit an article to The Freakish Reader on Exquisite Corpse. Okay, so how else could we interpret The Freakish Reader? Looking at these categories. The last one. As a weapon? How would that work? I'm now struggling to see it as something other than a magazine or a book. But then, could a book be a weapon? If it has secret compartments in it? Knives that flip out like a Swiss Army knife? What else could you fit in there if this is a magical book? Corkscrews, potions, poisons? A book written in poisonous ink? Now that could be a weapon. A freakish one too. But how would you be sure that the person would touch the letters, touch the poisonous ink? Maybe it's just the personal message written on the inside, half hidden by the jacket. If it's emotionally touching enough, personal enough, the recipient might stroke their thumb over it and then die. What else? One more category. A portal or a means of travel. Of course. How do you travel by book? Well, I frequently travel by book, now I think of it. It's just a thing that happens as you read the words and let your imagination soar. But could it be a physical means of travel? And what about the freakish reader? Well, I suppose that is pretty freakish if it can take you somewhere else physically. I've often said that there's a reason why books are shaped like doors. You open them up, they take you somewhere else. But what if a book became an actual door? I'm imagining a professor of some kind of magical studies. In the corridor outside a lecture theatre, in the bustle of students, he drops a notebook. Someone bends to pick it up for him, but he's too quick, snatching the leather-bound volume and slipping it into his pocket before they can get a clear look at it. He gives a quick smile, covering his embarrassment. Nothing to see here. Later, he sneaks into an empty office, knuckles tight around the book. Locking the door behind him, he strides over to a cupboard, opens the door. He feels around the back of the cupboard where the wood is uneven, patched together. His finger catches on a ridge. He smiles. He places the book against the panel and it sinks in, a perfect fit for a slim alcove. He gives it a push with the flat of his hand and he is gone. Dust motes turn in a ray of sun slanting through the window of his empty office. The notebook is a portal, or more a key into a secret door in the back of a cupboard. I quite like that idea. It makes me wonder, can my logbook of achievements do something like that? Right, well, I hope you've enjoyed the additional brainstorms today. Let me know if you have any comments about this format. I'd love to hear from you and what you think about this, or if you have any ideas for new categories that I could try. This is very much an experimental area, a work in progress that I want to develop. I'm planning to hold some more in-person games whenever I can this year, starting with the folk at work, if they're up for it, since they seem to enjoy the games I held at Christmas. I'm thinking of testing out some of these categories with them and expanding the list that I've begun. Maybe I'll use a dice to decide which interpretations to try each time, or I could just write them on cards and shuffle the cards. Let's see how it goes. You don't know until you try. You don't discover unless you explore. In the meantime, let me know if you have a story, poem, or a description of a story idea based on The Freakish Reader. You could even go for the ghostly outline of The Freakish Reader, as that takes into account part of the action part of The Exquisite Corpse as well. Maximum 250 words, please. And you know what to do. Go to annatizard.com, hit the contact button on any page footer, and let me know how you'd like to be known so I can quote you. Please send to me by the Friday after the release of this show so I can include you in the recording in good time. Until next time, go forth and be inspired. I hope you enjoyed today's Brainstorium. You can find out more about Exquisite Corpse and my series, The Book of Exquisite Corpse, at annatizard.com. Subscribe to my e-newsletter and you'll get Volume 1 for free. And while you're there, why not submit a few words to the Socks of Destiny on my play page? You may inspire me or inspire yourself to write a unique new story. See you next time.